When comparing the Intel Core i3-14100 and the Intel Core i5-10400, there are some clear differences that can help you decide which processor is better for your needs. The i3, part of Intel's 14th Gen Raptor Lake series, has 4 cores and 8 threads, with a base clock of 3.5 GHz and a turbo boost up to 4.7 GHz. It's built on a more advanced 10 nanometer process, has a lower thermal design power, TDP of 60 watts, and includes Intel UHD Graphics 730 for integrated graphics. On the other hand, the i5 from Intel's 10th Gen Comet Lake has 6 cores and 12 threads, with a base clock of 2.9 GHz and a turbo boost up to 4.3 GHz. It uses an older 14 nanometer process, has a higher TDP of 65 watts, and also includes integrated graphics. But it's the UHD Graphics 630, which is less powerful. In terms of performance, benchmarks like Geekbench and Cinebench show the i3 generally outperforms the i5 in single-core tasks by about 7%. Thanks to its newer architecture and higher IPC instructions per clock. However, the i5 is around 21% faster in multi-threaded tasks due to its extra cores and threads, making it better for multitasking or CPU-intensive workloads like video editing. For gaming, the i3 higher single-core performance gives it a slight edge, especially with lighter games or when paired with a good GPU. But the i5 can handle more demanding multi-threaded games better. Both CPUs are decent for budget builds, but the i3 is newer and more power efficient, while the i5 offers better multi-core performance at a potentially lower cost, depending on the market.
That's interesting. Which one would be better for gaming?
For gaming, the Intel Core i3 generally has a slight edge due to its higher single-core performance, which is critical for most games that rely heavily on single-threaded tasks. Benchmarks show it performs better in lighter games or when paired with a decent GPU, especially since it supports newer technologies like DDR5 memory and PCIe 5.0, which can improve overall system performance. However, if you're playing very CPU-intensive or multi-threaded games, the i5 extra cores and threads might give it an advantage, particularly in scenarios where the game can utilize more threads effectively. Overall, for most modern gaming in 2025, the i3 is likely the better choice, but it depends on your specific game load and GPU pairing.
What about power consumption? Does one use less power?
Yes, the i3 is more power efficient with a TDP of 60 watts compared to the i5 65 watts. The newer 10 nanometer architecture of the i3 is more efficient than the 14 nanometer process of the i5, so it generates less heat and uses less power under load. This can be a big advantage if you're building a budget PC or want lower electricity costs and quieter operation, especially in smaller cases with less robust cooling. However, the difference isn't massive, and both CPUs are manageable with standard cooling solutions.
Are there any compatibility issues I should worry about between these CPUs?
Yes, compatibility is a key consideration. The i3 uses the LGA 1700 socket, which is part of Intel's 12th, 13th, and 14th Gen processors, so it requires a motherboard with a 600 or 700 series chipset, like Z690, B760, or Z790. And it supports DDR5 or DDR4 memory, but not both simultaneously. The i5, on the other hand, uses the older LGA 1200 socket, compatible with 500 series chipsets like Z590 or B560, and it only supports DDR4 memory. So, you'd need different motherboards for each, and you can't swap them directly. Also, the i3 newer features like PCIe 5.0 aren't available on LGA 1200 boards, which only support up to PCIe 4.0. If you're upgrading an older system, the i5 might fit better, but for a new build, the i3 offers more future-proofing.
Thanks for the detailed comparison. One last thing, how do their prices stack up?
Price can vary depending on the region and market conditions as of February 2025, but generally, the i3 tends to be priced higher due to its newer architecture and better single-core performance, often around $120, $150. The i5, being an older model, is typically cheaper, often in the $100, $130 range, though it might be harder to find in stock as it's been phased out for newer models. If budget is a priority and you don't mind the older technology, the i5 could offer better value for multi-threaded tasks, but the i3 is usually the better long-term investment for gaming and general performance.